Okay, so we all recognize this iconic shape, right? The Kaaba in Mecca. But what was it before Islam? For the next few minutes, let's hit pause on theology and look at this thing for what it was: an incredible piece of ancient social technology. An invention, really, designed to solve some very real, very human problems. Let's dive in. So, let's kick things off with a question that might just flip the whole script. What if the story we think we know isn't the whole story? What if the Kaaba's true power in the ancient world was less about gods and idols and way more about law, money, and, well, power in a world that had almost none of it? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together.
So here's our game plan, how we're going to crack this thing open. First, we're going to look beyond the black box and see it as a social machine. Then we get to the good stuff, the reveals. We'll uncover how it was an ancient safe zone, how that safety fueled a massive economic engine, and how it created a bizarre kind of power without a king. We'll even see it get tangled up in a global power struggle. Each step is going to build on the last. You ready?
All right, to really get this, we have to start where the historians do, not with scripture, but with sociology. They look at the Kaaba as a piece of social hardware, an institution designed to fix specific problems for the people of ancient Arabia. So think of it less like a church and more like a wild combination of the United Nations, the New York Stock Exchange, and a demilitarized zone, all packed into one sacred spot.
Now this quote, this is basically our cheat sheet for the whole explainer. The Kaaba wasn't just one thing, it was a system. The ritual sanctuary, that was the operating system, the code that set all the rules. The pilgrimage economy, that was the billion-dollar app, the revenue stream that kept the lights on. And the power networks, that was the social media platform, the connections that gave it all its influence. See how it works? It's a machine with 3 core parts.
Okay, here it is, our first big gotcha moment. And honestly, it's the foundation for everything else. Before the Kaaba was anything else, its number one job was to create safety. I mean, we're talking about a world of brutal tribal warfare where blood feuds could last for generations. The Kaaba's primary function was to be a sanctuary, a safe zone.
And the concept that made this possible is the ḥaram. Now, this wasn't some brand new idea. It was an ancient tradition all over the Near East. Think of the sacred grounds around Greek temples. A ḥaram was a legally recognized truce zone. Once you crossed its invisible boundary, all fighting stopped. All weapons had to be put away. Friend or foe, you were untouchable under a sacred, unbreakable law. And this is what's so wild. Mecca itself wasn't powerful in any normal sense. It had no great farms, no massive army. Its true strength was a paradox. It came from being neutral. Because everyone trusted the Kaaba's haram, it became the one place where bitter enemies could meet to hammer out treaties, settle disputes, and, you guessed it, do a ton of business, all without worrying about getting a knife in the back. Its weakness was its ultimate superpower. So what about the Black Stone itself? Was it this totally bizarre, one-of-a-kind object? Well, not really. If you look at it anthropologically, it fits right into a widespread tradition of venerating beitls, sacred stones believed to be a physical home for a god, a Beit Allah. You could find similar sacred stones all over the ancient Semitic world. So the Black Stone wasn't an anomaly. It was part of a very well-known regional language of what's sacred. And get this for a fact that just brings it all to life. The Kaaba wasn't some mythical object that existed outside of time. It was a real building that fell apart and needed fixing. Around 608 CE, right before Islam kicks off, it was rebuilt using timber from a Byzantine merchant ship that wrecked on the Red Sea coast. How cool is that? It just perfectly shows that Mecca wasn't isolated. It was plugged right into the world of international trade and imperial superpowers.
Okay, so we've established the Kaaba as a guaranteed safe zone. So what does safety create? It creates opportunity. It creates markets. And in this case, it created an absolute monster of an economic engine. This is our second big reveal, how peace directly created profit on a massive scale.
The business model was genius. Step 1. The sanctuary safety guarantee meant that for a few months a year, anyone could travel across Arabia's most dangerous territories without getting robbed or killed. Step 2. This turns the annual pilgrimages into these enormous Burning Man-style gatherings for the entire peninsula. And Step 3. These gatherings weren't just for prayer, they were the biggest trade fairs of the year. The religious event was the catalyst for a massive economic boom every single year. Now, for a long time, people thought Mecca was this global super hub for spices, like a Silk Road city. Modern scholars have kind of debunked that. But, and this is the important part, it didn't need to be.
The sheer amount of regional trade created by the pilgrimage itself was more than enough to make Mecca the undisputed economic powerhouse of Arabia. It wasn't trading with China, but it was the center of its own universe.
So the pilgrimage was the engine, but what was the key that turned it on? Here's maybe the most brilliant, most overlooked gotcha of the whole system. The true source of Mecca's economic dominance was controlling something totally abstract. They controlled time itself.
Here's how they did it. The Arabs used a lunar calendar, which drifts around the seasons. To fix this, the Quraysh, Mecca's ruling tribe, controlled something called the nasi. Basically, they had the exclusive right to decide when to stick a 13th month into the year. Why does that matter? It meant they could guarantee the pilgrimage always happened at the perfect time for trade, like in the cool autumn months. Imagine having the power to decide when Christmas or Black Friday happens for an entire continent. That's the level of economic power we're talking about.
So all of this religious and economic control leads us to our third and maybe most mind-bending reveal. How was all this power actually managed? I mean, who was the king? Who was the president? The answer is nobody. Mecca was this incredible center of influence with no formal government, no police, and no army to speak of.
The power of the Quraysh tribe didn't come from the barrel of a gun. It came from being the keepers of the Kaaba. This gave them incredible prestige. It gave them the right to lead the sacred rituals. It made them the trusted judges in any dispute. And as we just saw, it gave them insane economic leverage. All of their power was what we'd today call soft power. It was all based on respect and influence. Now compare that to what they didn't have. No king who could just issue a command. No army to enforce his will. No tax collectors, no government buildings, none of it. It was all power without force, an authority based entirely on the collective buy-in to the sacredness of the sanctuary they managed. It was, for all intents and purposes, a powerhouse without a state. Wild. And now we zoom out, because this wasn't just some local story playing out in the desert. By the 6th century, the Kaaba and the whole system built around it had become a critical piece on a global chessboard in a huge struggle between the two superpowers of the day, the Christian Byzantine Roman Empire and the Zoroastrian Sasanian Persian Empire.
The famous Year of the Elephant story? That wasn't just a random raid, it was a proxy war. See, the Byzantine Empire's ally in Yemen, a Christian ruler named Abraha, built this colossal, magnificent cathedral. And his stated goal was to create a rival pilgrimage site to the Kaaba, to literally steal its pilgrims, its trade, and its influence, and pull all of Arabia into the Christian Byzantine sphere. So the Kaaba wasn't just a building anymore, it was now a symbol of Arab independence against foreign imperial domination.
Okay, so we've built this picture of the Kaaba as this incredibly complex machine. It's a safe zone, it's an economic engine, and it's a symbol of political identity. This is the world that Islam is born into. So the final, crucial question is, what does the new faith do with this powerful, pre-existing system? Does it smash the machine? This table shows it perfectly. Islam didn't destroy the system, it rebooted it. It kept the core social hardware. The ḥaram, the idea of a sanctuary, kept and made even stronger. The pilgrimage, kept and recentered. But the software, the religious operating system, was completely wiped and replaced. The pluralism of having hundreds of idols? Gone. Replaced with radical monotheism. Its purpose shifted from being a shared social hub to being the exclusive house of the one God. And this right here, this is the single phrase that sums up the entire explainer. Ritual continuity plus theological rupture. The things people did, circling the building, making the journey, those rituals continued. But the reason they were doing them, the entire belief system behind the actions, was a complete and total break from the past. A brand new meaning was poured into an old, very powerful vessel. So that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. Knowing that the Kaaba was this sophisticated piece of social hardware long before Islam, how does that change the way we think about how history works? It kind of suggests that world-changing movements often don't start from scratch. Maybe the smartest thing to do is find the most powerful institution already running and give it a radical new purpose. So, what do you think? Did any of these layers, the ḥaram as a DMZ, the control of the calendar, the superpower rivalry, did any of that surprise you? I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments. Let me know if you've ever noticed these historical layers before. And definitely tell me what other topics like this you'd want to see broken down.
Thanks so much for watching.